guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Rebecca. If you haven't been here before, welcome. So for today's video, we are going to be going over the last episode of season 5 of Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, episode 10. And this is the end of the season. I can't believe it. It's like absolutely flown by. And we're going to talk a little bit about maybe a couple of clues that we saw this episode that might influence next season. A little bit about like who the murderer is and how everything played out. And then also just like my overall thoughts on what I thought of this season, if I liked it, etc., etc. But before we get into the rest of the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good YouTube stuff. I'm trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we're doing pretty well, but any little help counts. I appreciate you guys so much for watching these videos and hanging out with me. I'd love to hear your theories about what you think is going to take place next season, especially with such a big person being the next to be murdered in this episode. So I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below because honestly, I already can't wait. I'm so excited. So with all that out of the way, let's get into today's video. So episode 10 was called The House Always Wins, which the house being the Arconia, being the trio, we get the vibe. We kind of see Nikki and Sophia's relationship play out from past to present, as well as, her cheating on him inevitably. And that seems to all have been connected with the opera Tosca, which was earlier mentioned in one of the episodes, like pretty loudly. We had Loretta, we had Rainey, and we had Sophia all kind of like listening to or owning this record by Tosca. We also have Howard and Vinny kind of having a couple cute moments this episode since we know Howard is single. And we kind of jump in right away. Nona is telling the trio that Sophia immediately knew who owned the finger that they brought to her. Like Nona could tell that Sophia recognized it. And it seems like it was someone who she was very close with or possibly sleeping with. So we're kind of like going through the episode. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because you've seen it, and there weren't like a ton of clues as far as I could tell this episode. But we hear Charles say, why didn't Lester just text us the killer's name? And obviously we find out that he did. We learn that Camilla intends to demolish the Arconia, and so the trio are truly giving it their best last effort to figure out who Lester's killer is. So they decide the best way to get a confession is to basically scare the billionaires into telling them the truth. They kind of have Sophia's sons in their back pocket, so they ask them to come and help intimidate the new mob via the old mob. And so just going through it, we end up learning that none of the billionaires are missing fingers. Jay shows that he actually was never missing a finger. He just did that because he thought that since they were missing the mayor's finger, if he had said, I lost a finger, someone would return it to him. And then the mayor comes into the Velvet Room and is like, hey Camilla, like the press conference is on. He kind of pretends that it's new to him. He's like, this is cool. And immediately Mabel realizes that Mayor Tillman is the murderer of this season because Howard texts her saying, Beau Tillman is coming downstairs, but it autocorrects to, it's beautiful. Like, it's Beau Tillman coming downstairs. It's beautiful, beautiful. Beau Tillman, sorry, autocorrect. And Mabel is like, oh my gosh, Lester did text us who the killer was, which is something that we talked a little bit about in my past episodes. This idea that this text message was actually autocorrect and that he did know who the murderer was and did try and tell them. And that was something that was discussed on Reddit. So if you're really into trying to figure out who the murderer is and you like this kind of thing, I would join the Only Murders Reddit group. I don't know exactly who mentioned it, but kudos to them. Very cool. We kind of pieced together that Mayor Tillman was at the game night and he's the one who was sleeping with Sophia. We see pictures of him on Nikki's phone, we see them together. And we realized that Tillman would come to these games whenever the billionaires needed a favor. He would come, they would lose a bunch of money to him, and he would grant them permits and things that they wanted for the city. So Nikki, knowing about the cheating scandal, is very upset. He kind of does a bump of cocaine and then takes the meat cleaver and cuts off the mayor's finger, and that's how the finger, you know, the story of the finger begins. And we see that Beau Tillman is yelling. He's like, what the heck? What's going on? I think he doesn't really know that Nikki knows that he's sleeping with Sophia. So he's bleeding. He's trying to cover his finger. And then Lester comes out and he hits Nikki in the head with the elevator crank. And he says, that's it. Like, I can't take it anymore. I should have turned you in ages ago. Like, you know, I have this book, this ledger full of information. I'm going to bring it to the cops, and like, I'm done with this. You know, I'm protecting my building. Nikki tries to kind of attack Lester with the cleaver, and he catches it in his book and pulls it away. And he's holding it, and Nikki ends up falling into him and falling on top of Lester, and the cleaver like goes into him that way. So that is actually how Nikki died. So like I said, I didn't think that Lester killed Nikki. I wouldn't consider this Lester killing Nikki. I would say that this was Nikki killing Nikki by accident. Like, it was his own flaw. I mean, Lester did hit him in the head, but it wasn't a fatal blow. He probably would have been okay if he went to the hospital. But combined with the alcohol and the cocaine and everything else, you know, he fell on Lester and died. So I still feel like Lester's pretty innocent in this. And so Lester's like, oh my gosh, he takes the finger, he runs away because he's like, that's it. I have to tell the world what's been going on down here because this is my building. This is my place. And I'm not going to let these people, like these fraudulent people, do these things in my building. So he runs away. Tillman goes after him because it's incriminating that his finger would be at the Arconia, be in this velvet room. Like, he doesn't want someone to reveal that he's been basically going to these games and getting free money from the billionaires, but like granting them whatever they want, because that's like a huge, that's a bad thing for the mayor. So he's like, he knows that he's corrupt and he doesn't want other people to realize it. So he goes after Lester, and obviously we know what happens. Lester grabs his bird whistle because he wants to get the video recording outside after Tillman basically says, like, Bash owns all these cameras and we can erase this in an instant. Like, I can do whatever I want to you. They run outside. Lester's already given the finger to Randall and said, bring this to Mr. Putnam upstairs. And the mayor chases him, ends up pushing him into the fountain, and Lester hits his head, and that is how he dies. And he does blow the bird whistle with basically his last breath to kind of get the video going, because he's really trying to help the trio solve these murders, basically, and what's going on in the building. So it is very sad. He ends up texting Rainey, it's beautiful, when he meant to say it's Beau Tillman, like it was autocorrected. And that is kind of the story of how both Nikki and Lester died this season. So we come back to the present, and Beau Tillman obviously doesn't even care that he's admitted to murder because he knows that he can stop this narrative. He's like, I've been gone for 7 minutes. The crooked cops come in. They take the trio's phones. They smash them. They throw them away. They lock the trio in the basement, in the behind of the velvet room. And he's like, the building's going to be demolished and you'll be the last murder in this building. And I gotcha. There's nothing you can do about it. And this is kind of very Jan-esque, like the idea of dying in the building that they live in, like this kind of full circle moment situation, them being in like the basement because she was going to release poison. Mayor Tillman's going to demolish the building, so them kind of dying in their own building is a little bit reminiscent of season 1. Charles ends up, as they're tied up, revealing that he was in the placebo group for the testosterone, so he actually never had any testosterone at all, any extra testosterone. And so he's kind of like, oh, I can't, I'm like useless. And they're like, no, Charles, you did all of this on your own. Like, that just means that you are a strong individual without any tea. You know, you can do this. So he decides he's going to do this magic trick to get them freed from this like secret room in the velvet room. And he climbs up the pole and gets a hanger and ends up like unlocking them and telling them how to like spin out of the chain. So that's what's going on in this secret room. We also have the conference going on upstairs where Camilla is announcing and talking about the new casino that she's going to run. And Miller comes upstairs to Howard and is like, hey, I just found these 3 phones in that they were thrown down the trash chute. Don't they belong to Charles, Mabel, and Oliver? What's going on? And immediately Howard is like, something bad is happening and we need to help them. So he's like, how are we going to get past these crooked cops? Like, how are we going to get down there? Like, they're not letting me down. And Thea steps in and she says, I can help with that. She ends up having her music played on Lester the robot, and she says, oh my gosh, like, you know, I was just thinking of doing a farewell performance in the secret velvet room downstairs. Do you all want to follow me? And obviously all this press is like, oh my gosh, famous pop star, secret room in the Arconia. Yes, we will be following you. So she goes downstairs. She's performing on one of the tables, and Charles has officially released them, and they pop out of the room, the secret room, and they're like, Mayor Tillman is a murderer. He killed our doorman. And he's like, you can't prove anything. Like, you don't have anything on me. It's hearsay. It's ridiculous. Like, nobody listened to them. And the trio run over to the roulette game and they unlock the secret drawer, which inside is a recording device. So they knew that the mayor was going to pull some shit like that, and they placed a separate recording device outside of their phones to record him admitting that he killed Lester. He ends up being like, oh, it's AI, it's fake, like blah, blah, blah. And then he makes a run for it. The 3rd time this season that someone has made a run for it. He's going up the stairs. Randall and Vince Fish release a bunch of pigeons into the velvet room hallway, and he ends up getting attacked and caught. So that is it for the mayor, and he's getting arrested. His crooked cops are getting arrested. We see Dee there arresting the mayor herself, so that was a cool moment. And Fluke kind of comes over and he's like, listen, Mabel, I know that, like, he tells her everything that happened that night, and he's like, I know that you might think that I'm a bad person, but I really feel like I am different from these other billionaires. Like, I feel like there's good inside of me. And he's like, I told the cops everything that happened, and, you know, how me and Bash and Camilla were very much involved. And, you know, we see the 3 of them getting arrested and being taken away. And we realize that the building is saved. Woohoo! And also Jay is low-key redeemed in the way he's helping the trio out. We're like, okay, Jay, we see you. Like, maybe you're a decent guy. I still don't want you to date Mabel. I still don't like the vibes of their relationship. Mabel and Theo forever. Like, but we see the attempt at growth. So okay, fair. Sophia also reveals that she is finally going on that trip to Positano that she always wanted to go on with Nikki. She's not waiting around for anybody anymore, and she actually got a huge sum of money from the billionaires by selling the finger back to them, and that's why she had her Nona and Sons steal it from Charles. And she does ask him if he'll come with her because she says, you know, I do really care about you. I wasn't lying. And I'd love for you to come to Positano with me. And we see for the first time Charles make a genuinely good decision and be like, no, I'm going to say no to a dangerous woman for the first time in my life and stay here. And so, you know, that's growth on Charles's part. We love to see that too. Men growing. One therapy session and Charles all of a sudden is like a new man. So men, go to therapy. And then we kind of end off with Rainey is really happy that Lester's gotten justice. And we jump 3 months into the future. We see Rainey sitting in her own Arconia apartment with a bag full of money given to her by Sophia, you know, from one widow to another. We love the support, women supporting women. And we also love, I love that Rainey ended up being able to live her and Lester's dream. Like, that's what he would have wanted for her. And now she lives in this beautiful Arconia apartment. She can hear the birds singing outside. Like, it would have been everything Lester wanted. And I'm so glad that she gets to be in a space that he loved so much. And hopefully it's bringing her a lot of joy too. But important part, while we're going on this journey into the future, we hear the song called The Flower Duet. And this is from an opera. And we are going to circle back to this, but this is important. Like I say, songs, like posters, movies, shows, anything mentioned in the show is often a clue. Sometimes it's a red herring, but we're going to dig a little bit more into this in a few minutes. We're coming to the very end of this season. Howard and Vinny are having a cute little moment. They're clearly going on a date. We love that for Howard. And the trio are back where they began, full circle, listening to Cinda Canning's podcast together. This is a new season. The trio are like, oh, we wish we could do like another season. Like, we kind of missed podcasting. I don't know if they even got to finish the podcast for this season because of their being owned by Wandify now. Like, we don't really have a good idea of if this season even went live. So they're kind of reminiscing like, oh, like we wish, we could have a season of the show, even though I'm sure they don't want anyone to be murdered, but like, yeah, whatever. And Cinda's podcast is called The Girl with the Curls. So it takes place in Great Britain, and they're reminiscing about their 5 years together, and they start listening to the podcast. So we hear Cinda say there's a new mystery about a young woman with red curls, and we immediately see a girl with red curls running through what we're kind of assuming is New York City almost immediately. She hits the wall and she leaves like a bloody handprint. And Cinda says the girl is the prime suspect in the murder of a royal descendant, and fueled by the tabloids, there have been a lot of threats against her life. And Cinda says that she wants to send her to America, which is the only place where this girl might be safe. And so we're like, okay, we think this girl is in America, maybe New York, maybe she's going to see the trio because she's, in danger. And we see the girl collapse outside of the Arconia gates, of course. And the trio have clearly finished their podcast episode. They're coming outside. They're going to Pickle's Diner. And there is Howard and Gravy standing outside of the Arconia with this woman collapsed. And Howard says like, oh my gosh, I saw her fall and she was crawling towards the building. Like, it was scary. And he says, oh, it's a bummer, that she's not in the building, since she's dead or dying. So close, but yet so far. But then she reaches her hand out and smacks it through the gate of the building. And they were just kind of discussing like what counts as the building. Honestly, even if she'd collapsed outside of the building, I would have counted it, but whatever, semantics. And they're like, okay, this woman is officially in the building. This is another murder in the building. Let's go. So Howard's like, okay, I called the police. And very last minute of the episode, this girl with red curls rolls over. And who is it? But Cinda Canning herself. And she has blood coming out of the side of her mouth. She's got these red curls. And the trio are in shock. They're like, Cinda? And that is the end of the season. So we have another murder all lined up for the trio for our next season. Fingers crossed. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but it looks like they're all set to take it overseas. They're ready to take it to London. So this is undoubtedly where the next season would take place. Discussing Cinda's murder and what happened to her. And I have a feeling that they will be filming some episodes in Great Britain, England. Even if they're not like literally filming them over there, they will be like in a setting over there. But we're going across the pond, people. Like, very exciting. We went to Hollywood. It wasn't far enough. Now we're going to England. Last but certainly not least, before we end this episode, there is a clue hidden in this last episode, and that is the opera Lock Me, which is what the flower duet, which was playing when the 3 months later jump happened, that's the flower duet, and it is from the opera Lock Me. So let's talk about it. The opera Lock Me is about a woman who falls in love, her name's Lock Me, with a British officer. Her father hates the colonists. I believe this is taking place in India, being colonized by Great Britain. And it's about how her father, he hates the colonists. He's like, Lock Me, don't fall in love with anyone. Like, they're not good for us. The British officer ends up getting injured and she nurses him back to health, and she does indeed fall in love with him. And after he is back to full health, she realizes that she is in love with him, but that the cultural divide and the political divide is so great that she doesn't believe that their love can survive. And she would rather than betray her father and her people, she decides to take poison and take her own life. So that is kind of the opera. It's a tragedy. But the flower duet specifically talks about two things. One, it mentions jasmine. It's all about like taking place under the jasmine, the arches of jasmine, blah, blah, blah. Well, Cinda Canning at the very beginning of the podcast says that she has a new obsession with jasmine tea, and it has become a daily ritual for her to take jasmine tea. I don't think that that is a coincidence. So already we've got the song associated with Cinda. And then the other thing about the song, the flower duet, is that it is heavily associated with Great Britain and the British Airways. It's got a brand image that's associated with that. So it's also associated with England overall, which we know is going to be a part of the next season. But what's really interesting about the song is that it talks about an eerie feeling of distress. It says, "But an eerie feeling of distress overcomes me. When my father goes into their accursed city, I tremble with fright." So I don't know what the accursed city is. Maybe it is London, but that's Lock Me singing about her father. And I think what's going to be interesting about this is Cinda clearly has been poisoned because she has the blood coming out of her mouth. So it's a story about poison, and it's being associated with the jasmine in the song. So I think that the opera Lock Me is our first clue of the next season. Is this going to have to do with Cinda meeting a lover over in England and they are part of the reason why she died? Is it going to be that she, took poison and it's being framed as if it was a suicide, that she took her own life? Like, it seems like this is our first clue, the association with the jasmine and the idea that Cinda is this person who is in the UK. And also this idea that there's an eerie feeling of distress, and when my father goes into their accursed city, I tremble. Is this going to have to do something with like fathers? Like, we often have like a familial aspect in Only Murders where we talk about like a mother and her son, like the season had with Loretta and Dickie, and the adoption. We had a lot of like son and like mother references in that season. So that we often see these references that kind of lead us to the story of what's really going on in the season. And I think this is going to be especially interesting. So just off the bat, gonna be in the UK, possibly about Cinda framing Cinda's death as an accident or her taking her own life, and it having to do with poison, and possibly to do with maybe a relationship with her father that she had, or maybe a relationship with a lover, or both. We will see. The last thing I want to mention is, as always, there are some plot points that have been left open in this season, and we always talk about the possibility of a Moriarty character and whether we're going to have, when the final season comes, kind of a big reveal of like how everything is connected. So off the top of my head, two things that we never got the answer to in this season. One, Loretta's place being set on fire purposely. no explanation. And 2 is the Tommy the Tongue mystery. Who is Tommy the Tongue? Why was that money pulled out of that account? Where did that money go? We don't know. We never found an answer to that. And in every season, there seems to be a couple of little pieces that go untouched, which does make me think that in the future they're planning to tie everything together in a way that gives us some sort of like big ending. So I want to know your thoughts on this season. I really liked it. I love the return to the Arconia. My favorite season will always be the first season. There was just such a cozy vibe and like an authentic bonding experience for the trio. So I love it so much. But I'm really glad that we returned to the Arconia because last season we kind of spent time elsewhere, and the Arconia is my favorite place. That's where I want to be. I know some people maybe found that a little bit boring, but like I want to spend the majority of the time in the Arconia with the community that we know, like Uma and Howard and Dr. Grover Stanley and like those characters with Lester, and you get what I mean. So that return for me was really positive. I loved it. I love being in the Arconia. I really do wish that we'd concentrated more on the podcast this season. I know that it was hard because they hit a wall when 1 to 5 was purchased by the billionaires and they couldn't really film any episodes. So there was that part that was missing from it of them filming and doing more for the podcast specifically. I wish they would have fought 1 to 5 a bit harder, or like shown that they did publish episodes once they figured out that the billionaires were not actually the murderers. They were like, oh, well, now we're not going against our bosses. We can continue to publish episodes. So they kind of just didn't talk about that. That was a bit of a bummer for me because the podcast is such a fun element of the show. But other than that, loved this season. I genuinely really liked it. It was pretty high up there for me. Last season, I feel like I didn't like as much. So this season, much, much better. I'm excited for next season, a little bit scared since a lot of it might be taking place overseas. And like I said, big Arconia girly. So I hope we don't spend too much time elsewhere. And I hope we don't bring in too many like new people. Every time we bring in like a brand new cast of people, I feel farther away from our original cast. I really hope that Theo is in the season. Like, come on, give Mabel a love interest that is like permanent and is gonna stick around, and make that love interest Theo, Team Theo. So that's kind of all I have to say about this season. I want to hear your thoughts. Did you like the season? Were there any plot holes that were left open that I missed? How do you think they're going to tie them together? And what are your thoughts on next season and Cinda Canning being the murder victim? Like, what is going on? I love Cinda as the murder victim because she's associated enough with the show that like we know her. She's not like someone random, like Ben Glenroy, for example. So we care about her, but she's not such a big character like Lester that I'm gonna like miss her deeply. I'll miss her a little bit though. So thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good YouTube stuff. We will be back next season with more episodes, and make sure to stick around. If you guys are interested in seeing like an overarching theories for all the seasons and a Moriarty character, let me know because I'm rewatching right now and I would be happy to take notes and give you my predictions for how this show's gonna end. We don't want it to end, but how will it end? So I love you guys, and I will see you next time with another video.